Welcome to Let's Talk About Wellness, the podcast from providers for healthy living. Today we're jumping into a deep dive on something that honestly fundamentally changes how we view mental health.
Yeah, it really does.
Like we're looking at this whole stack of clinical trials to explore the really fascinating and kind of hidden connections between what we put on our plates, the inflammation happening inside our bodies, and how our brains actually feel.
Right.
Specifically, we're focusing on major depressive disorder, or MDD.
Which is, a topic that demands a really honest look at your day-to-day reality as a listener. Because I think a lot of us have been there.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, picture this scenario. You're stuck in this depressive rut. You're feeling incredibly sluggish, dealing with that kind of heavy work. Just getting off the couch to get a glass of water feels like this monumental, impossible task.
Yeah, that physical heaviness is so real.
Right. And you've tried all the standard advice. You're trying to prioritize sleep. You've tried journaling. You're trying to simply, think positive.
Doing all the right things.
Exactly. And you're wondering why willpower just isn't enough to pull you out of the fogs. So you hit a wall in the mid-afternoon and you grab like a sugary donut for a quick dopamine hit just to survive a stressful afternoon meeting.
We have all been there.
But then 2 hours later, the crash hits and you actually feel heavier, darker, and way more exhausted than before you took that first bite. And the question that just keeps looping in your mind is, why does my body betray me like this?
And that is the exact question this deep dive is designed to answer. We're going to unpack how that afternoon crash has, way less to do with a lack of willpower and a whole lot more to do with your immune system.
Wait, hold on. I have to stop you right there.
Sure.
Because, we've all heard the criticisms of the basic serotonin, chemical imbalance theory, right? But jumping from it's not just a chemical imbalance to my immune system is actively driving my mood that's a massive leap.
It is.
Are you actually saying my immune system is involved? How does that leap even happen?
It is a massive leap, but it makes perfect sense if we look at it through the lens of an evolutionary mismatch.
Okay, an evolutionary mismatch.
Yeah. So think of your immune system as this ancient, incredibly overzealous home security system.
Security system, got it.
Right. Back in the caveman days, if you were exposed to a dangerous pathogen or you got a massive wound, your body's security alarm would trigger what researchers call sickness behavior.
Sickness behavior? You mean like the physical symptoms of having the flu?
Well, not just physical. It actively shifted your behavior. Like it shut down your physical energy, made you want to socially withdraw, completely killed your appetite.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it basically forced you to hide away in a dark, quiet cave and just sleep.
Which, honestly, if you look at a diagnostic manual, that sounds virtually identical to the symptoms of severe depression.
It is essentially identical. And, in the pre-antibiotic era, that was a brilliant survival mechanism.
Because you're resting.
Exactly. It redirected all of your body's metabolic energy away from foraging or socializing and aimed it entirely at fighting the infection. Plus, it kept you isolated from the tribe so you wouldn't infect them.
That makes total sense for a caveman.
Right. The problem is that today, we aren't generally fighting ancient plagues on a daily basis.
No, we are fighting traffic, unread emails, and economic stress.
Exactly. The modern world is just packed with chronic, sterile stressors, psychological stress, chronic sleep deprivation, and diets that are high in ultra-processed foods.
Right.
But your body cannot tell the difference between a life-threatening bacterial infection and the chronic stress of modern living.
Oh, I see. So it just reacts the same way.
Yeah, these modern stressors keep that ancient security alarm ringing constantly, and the result is persistent, low-grade systemic inflammation.
Wow.
And your genetics can actually make you more vulnerable to this too. Like people with variations in certain genes, like the TNF-alpha gene, basically inherited a security alarm with a hair trigger.
Meaning it goes off even easier.
Exactly. If you have that genetic variation, your biological baseline is primed to trigger that sickness behavior way faster than someone else.
Wait, hold on. Unpack that for me, because this sounds like a massive chicken and egg situation.
It really does.
Is the systemic inflammation causing the depression, or is the psychological weight of the depression causing the inflammation?
So that debate has kept biological psychiatrists busy for decades.
I bet.
But the emerging consensus in psychoneuroimmunology is that they are what's called a unitary syndrome.
A unitary syndrome. What does that mean exactly?
It means they happen together. It's not a simple one-way street where, A causes B. They're parallel processes that form a bridge between your psychological state and your physical biology.
Okay, I think I understand the evolutionary theory, but let's get into the mechanics of it.
Sure, let's do
And
it.
because how do we get from a swollen knee kind of immune response, which is, what most of us picture when we hear the word inflammation, to feeling deeply sad and hopeless?
Right, the actual brain connection.
Yeah, how does a stressed out immune system actually reach into the brain and change the mood?
So that brings us to a biological process called tryptophan-quinine shunting.
Oh, okay. That sounds incredibly dense.
It is. The terminology is super dense, but we can visualize it perfectly using a construction site analogy. Let's talk about lumber.
Okay, lumber. I can follow that.
Imagine an essential amino acid called L-tryptophan as a pile of really high-quality lumber. We get this lumber entirely from our diet, from foods like oats, poultry, bananas, peanuts.
So it's raw material we're actively importing into the body.
Right. And normally, under healthy, low-stress conditions, your brain uses this imported lumber to build serotonin houses.
Serotonin house.
Yeah. And these structures are vital. They keep your mood stable, they help regulate your sleep cycles, and they keep your executive function and decision-making running smoothly.
Okay, so we definitely want a bustling neighborhood of serotonin houses.
As many as possible.
Yeah.
So, what do you think disrupts the construction?
The security alarm we talked about earlier.
Exactly. When systemic inflammation runs high, your immune system panics. It sees all these inflammatory signals floating around the bloodstream and assumes you are under attack by a deadly pathogen.
Oh, wow.
So the immune system commandeers the lumber. It literally intercepts that L-tryptophan at the cellular level and diverts it down a completely different pathway. Instead of building serotonin houses, your immune system uses that exact same lumber to build weapons.
Weapons? Wait, what kind of weapons?
It creates neurotoxic byproducts, the main one being something called quinolinic acid.
Okay, and what do those do?
Well, in a true infection, these weapons are deployed to kill off invading bacteria. But because there is no actual pathogen, because the alarm was tripped by chronic stress and poor diet, these weapons had nothing to fight.
So where do they go?
They end up causing collateral structural damage to the emotion-regulating centers of your own brain, specifically areas like the hippocampus. They essentially overstimulate the brain cells until they burn out.
That is legitimately terrifying.
It is.
So my immune system, trying to protect me, is tearing down my mood-stabilizing houses to build weapons that are actively damaging my brain's ability to regulate emotion.
That is exactly what has happened.
But who is directing this traffic? Like, why doesn't the body realize there is no infection and just stop?
Because the primary traffic cops directing this lumber are your gut bacteria. And this is the core of the gut-brain highway.
Okay, the gut-brain connection.
Right. When we consume a diet heavy in ultra-processed foods, we starve the beneficial bacteria in our gut. And that leads to intestinal permeability, which you might have heard referred to as leaky gut.
Leaky gut, meaning things that should stay safely inside the digestive tract are escaping.
Yes. Specifically, these microscopic toxins from the walls of the bacteria themselves leak out of the gut and into the bloodstream.
Yikes.
And when your immune system detects these toxins in the blood, it absolutely panics. It views that leakage as a massive systemic infection, which forces it to keep building those weapons instead of serotonin.
Oh, I see.
The imbalance in your gut is literally driving the neurotoxic damage in your brain.
Realizing that your gut and your brain are locked in this intense tug of war and your immune system is just caught in the middle, pulling the alarm, it feels incredibly overwhelming.
It really does.
Especially if you are already struggling with your mental health. Trying to untangle something this deeply biological can feel completely impossible on your own.
It is a massive amount to process. And it really underscores why having the right clinical guidance is so crucial.
Absolutely.
For those of you listening in Ohio who are looking for a safe space and professional support, you can find our team at providersforhealthyliving.com, because you shouldn't have to figure out this biological puzzle entirely on your own.
No, you really shouldn't.
So getting back to the evidence, if the gut bacteria are the traffic cops, and what we eat dictates how they direct that lumber, how do we actually measure that?
Right. How do we prove that a cheeseburger pulls the alarm while a salad disarms it?
Researchers managed to quantify this beautifully using a tool called the Dietary Inflammatory Index, or the DII.
The DII, what is that?
They come through roughly 6,000 peer-reviewed articles to assess how 45 distinct parameters in our food, so everything from basic macronutrients to specific plant compounds, affect our key inflammatory markers in the blood.
Wow.
Yeah, they essentially created a scoring system for how inflammatory a specific diet is.
And when they applied that scoring system to depression risk, what did they actually find?
The epidemiological data is striking. People eating highly pro-inflammatory diets, those sitting in the highest category of the DII, have a 23% higher risk of developing clinical depression compared to those eating an anti-inflammatory diet.
23% higher. But wait, is it an all or nothing threshold? Like if I eat one bad meal, am I suddenly in the high risk category?
Not at all, and that is what makes this so fascinating. There is a clear linear dose response.
Mean.
The research shows that every 1 unit increase in your inflammatory diet score raises your risk of developing depressive symptoms by 6%.
Wow. So literally every bite of highly processed food is incrementally sending more lumber to the weapons factory.
That is exactly what is happening biologically. And we should note a really important nuance in the data here, too. Women appear to be significantly more vulnerable to this diet-induced neuroinflammation than men.
Really?
Yeah, when they looked at the risk association for women, it jumped to a 25% increase in depression risk.
Oh, wow. Why is it higher for women?
Well, for men, the association was weaker and didn't consistently reach statistical significance. Researchers think it might be due to hormonal differences or maybe different baseline levels of physical activity acting as a buffer for men.
Okay, I have to play the skeptic here for a minute.
Please do.
Because I fully understand the mechanism now. I get that eating junk food causes inflammation and that inflammation is a risk factor.
Right.
But if I'm a listener who is already in a severe clinical depression, like if my brain has already been building these weapons for months or years and the hippocampus is already struggling, can changing my diet actually treat it?
It's a huge question.
Because using food as prevention makes sense, but claiming it can cure severe depression sounds a bit too good to be true.
And honestly, that exact skepticism was shared by the medical community for a long time.
Well, I'm not surprised.
But it is exactly what prompted the SMILES trial, which stands as an absolute landmark in the field of nutritional psychiatry.
The SMILES trial.
Yeah. The researchers didn't want to just look at prevention anymore. SMILES was the first randomized controlled trial explicitly designed to evaluate whether a structured dietary intervention could be an effective standalone treatment for individuals actively suffering from moderate to severe clinical depression.
Oh, wow. So they didn't just track healthy people to see who got sad later. They recruited people who were already in the thick of MDD.
Exactly.
How did they actually structure the trial to prove the food was the variable, though?
They took 67 participants who were clinically depressed and had confirmed poor baseline diets, and they randomly split them into 2 groups. The control group received an active social support program, often called befriending. They met with professionals just to talk and receive social engagement.
Which makes sense, because that controls for the mental health benefits of just having human interaction, right?
Exactly, just having someone checking in on you. But the other group received 7 individualized sessions with a clinical dietitian to transition them onto a modified Mediterranean diet.
Okay.
And to ensure compliance and remove any financial stress, the researchers actually provided food hampers to the diet group.
That's a great idea. So what happened at the end of the trial? Did a dietary shift actually rival standard therapy?
At the 12-week endpoint, the results were groundbreaking. Nearly 1/3 of the participants on the modified Mediterranean diet, 32.3%, achieved full clinical remission.
Full remission?
Yes, meaning their depression scores dropped so significantly that they no longer even met the diagnostic criteria for MDD.
That is incredible. How did the control group do?
Compare that to only 8% in the social support control group. The number needed to treat was 4.1.
For those who might not know, number needed to treat, or NNT, is a standard metric, right?
Yes, it is.
So an NNT of 4.1 means you only need to treat about 4 people with this dietary intervention for one of them to achieve complete remission who wouldn't have otherwise. That is an incredibly powerful efficacy rate.
It is. It frequently outperforms standard pharmaceutical interventions. And to prove it wasn't just a fluke, we can look at the MEND trial.
What did they do differently?
They replicated this exact concept, but they focused on a cohort of young men aged 18 to 25.
Which is brilliant, because that specific demographic is notorious for surviving on energy drinks, fast food, and having generally terrible sleep schedules.
Oh, yeah.
It's a really high-risk group for first-episode depression.
And it worked there, too. Over 12 weeks, moving those young men to a Mediterranean-style diet led to massive, statistically significant improvements in their depression scores.
Okay, I love seeing the data replicated, but let me put my devil's advocate hat back on for a second.
Go for it.
How do we know this isn't just a massive placebo effect? Because, in a drug trial, you can give someone a sugar pill and they don't know if they're getting the real medicine. But in the SMILES trial, you cannot double-blind a piece of broccoli.
That is so true, and it is the single biggest methodological hurdle in nutritional psychiatry. When you're eating a fresh salad versus a deep-fried cheeseburger.
Right. And if they were getting food hampers and meeting with dietitians, they probably expected to feel better. Expectation bias is huge in mental health.
The researchers knew this. In fact, the recruitment materials for the SMILES trial explicitly stated they were testing a diet for depression, which absolutely primes the participants.
Yeah, of course it does.
It is a major reason why clinical bodies, like the Canadian Network for Mood and Anxiety Treatments, still cautiously classify the Mediterranean diet as a third-line adjunctive treatment rather than a primary standalone cure.
That makes sense.
But the researchers anticipated the placebo argument, and the counter-evidence is buried in the secondary analysis of the data.
Oh, really? What did the secondary analysis show?
It showed a distinct dose-response curve. The remission wasn't just linked to being assigned to the diet group. It was directly tied to how strictly the individual actually adhered to the dietary changes.
Meaning the more they stuck to it, the better they got.
Exactly. The data revealed that for every 10% reduction in a participant's dietary share of ultra-processed foods, they experienced a measurable 2.5-point improvement in their depression scores.
Wow.
The more they adhered to the actual physiological changes in their diet, the better they felt. If it were pure placebo, you wouldn't expect such a tight mathematical correlation with the removal of specific pro-inflammatory triggers.
Yeah, that completely changes the context. The physical removal of the inflammatory food directly mapped to the reduction in symptom severity.
It really did.
But before we pivot into exactly how someone listening can implement these changes, we need to frame this actionable advice carefully.
Absolutely. This podcast is for educational purposes only and does not substitute for professional medical or mental health advice. Please consult a qualified professional for diagnosis and treatment. If you or a family member are in immediate crisis, please call a crisis hotline, dial 988 in the U.S., call 911, or go to the nearest emergency room for assistance.
And that framing is critical because, diet is a powerful tool in the toolkit, but it's not the entire toolbox.
Exactly right.
Okay, so I'm breathing a massive sigh of relief here that there is actual, actionable hope.
Yes.
But practically speaking, what do I actually eat? Like, if I'm struggling, get off the couch. Please don't tell me I have to live on plain, steamed kale and tap water.
I promise I won't.
Also, isn't eating a whole food diet incredibly expensive, especially with current grocery prices?
Okay, let's shatter the cost myth right out of the gate. In the SMILES trial, the researchers meticulously tracked the grocery bills of the participants. The individuals following the healthy, modified Mediterranean diet actually lowered their overall food costs by the end of the trial compared to their baseline junk food diets.
Really? Lowered them?
Yeah.
Well, I guess because ultra-processed convenience foods, delivery apps, and frequent takeout add up way faster than buying basic raw ingredients like lentils or frozen vegetables.
Precisely. Now, regarding what to actually eat, the goal is never strict restriction. The goal is nutrient density and introducing anti-inflammatory components.
Okay, but can I just bypass the cooking fatigue entirely? Like, can I just take a high-dose omega-3 pill and a zinc supplement, since the research mentions those are key antidepressant nutrients, and just call it a day?
Well, single supplements definitely have a place if you have a severe blood-tested deficiency.
Right?
But taking a single supplement is essentially like hiring a solo kazoo player for a concert.
A solo kazoo player. I like where this is going.
I mean, it might make a little noise, but it's not going to change the atmosphere. Consuming a whole food dietary pattern, however, is like hiring an entire world-class symphony.
Ah, I love that.
The nutrients in whole foods don't work in isolation, they work synergistically. The vitamins, the trace minerals, the dietary fiber, and the healthy fats all interact and amplify each other to regulate your gut-brain axis. The symphony outperforms the kazoo every single time.
Okay, so what specific instruments make up this symphony? Like, what does the daily plate look like?
The clinical target used in these trials is the modified Mediterranean diet, or MODI-MEDIAT.
Okay.
It heavily emphasizes whole grains, fruits, vegetables, low-fat dairy, lean meats, and a very specific focus on extra virgin olive oil, aiming for about 3 tablespoons daily.
Wow, 3 tablespoons of olive oil a day is a lot. Why so much?
Because high-quality extra virgin olive oil is packed with polyphenols, which are these incredible anti-inflammatory compounds that your gut bacteria absolutely thrive on.
Oh, nice.
And a fantastic practical strategy championed by gut health experts to feed those bacteria is the Eat the Rainbow approach. The overarching goal is to aim to consume 30 different plants a week.
30 different plants a week? Honestly, if I'm already depressed and overwhelmed, that sounds mathematically impossible.
It sounds incredibly daunting until you realize what counts as a plant. We aren't talking about 30 bowls of different leafy greens.
Okay, good.
Every single herb, every spice, every nut, seed, and even different colored bell peppers count as individual plants.
Wait, really? Spices count?
Yes, if you have a bowl of oatmeal and you add cinnamon, chia seeds, walnuts, and blueberries, you just hit 5 plants in one remarkably easy breakfast.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's way easier.
It's about boosting the richness and diversity of your microbiome so they have the energy to build those serotonin houses. You want to prioritize that dietary fiber, omega-3s, and legumes like chickpeas and lentils.
What about the pro-inflammatory foods, like the sugary donut I grabbed at 2 p.m. to survive my meeting?
So the clinical target in the trials was never 0. It was to keep the pro-inflammatory extras, so the ultra-processed snacks, the fast food, the sugary drinks, 2 under 3 servings a week.
Okay, but under 3 servings a week is still a significant shift for the standard modern diet.
It is.
How does someone start making that shift without getting totally overwhelmed by meal prep and just, giving up on day 2?
You start incredibly small. The clinical guidelines deeply stress that you should not try to overhaul your entire life overnight.
Good, because that never works.
No, it doesn't. Start by simply adding 1 extra serving of vegetables to whatever you are already eating today. Or commit to just eating a solid fiber-rich breakfast if you are someone who usually skips it and runs on coffee.
Right.
You rely on frozen vegetables, canned beans, and pre-chopped ingredients to lower the barrier to entry. Introduce changes over multiple weeks, ideally collaborating with a registered dietitian who can help tailor a sustainable plan that fits your specific life and energy levels.
Yeah.
Add the good stuff first, rather than obsessing over restricting the bad stuff.
Adding rather than restricting. That feels so much more manageable, especially when you are navigating the cognitive fog and motivational barriers that come with depression.
It really is.
And I think that brings us to a really powerful final thought for our listeners to mull over. We spent a lot of time today talking about depression as a clinical disorder, as a burden.
Yeah.
But if we reframe it through this lens of psychoneuroimmunology, depression is, at least in part, an ancient, well-meaning immune response. Your body isn't broken. It is genuinely trying to protect you by making you withdraw and conserve energy to fight what it thinks is a threat.
Right. The security system just got confused by modern stress, a leaky gut, and ultra-processed food.
Exactly. So maybe we can finally stop blaming ourselves for a perceived lack of willpower. Instead of fighting your body or feeling betrayed by it, you can view your daily food choices as a way to communicate with it.
Oh, I've left that.
You can use a diverse, colorful, whole food diet to gently signal to your immune system that the war is over, there is no pathogen, and it is finally safe to turn the alarms off.
That is a beautiful way to look at it.
If this conversation helped you today, please follow the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or YouTube, and leave us a 5-star review or comment, and share the podcast. It helps more people in our community find these resources. We'll talk to you next time.